I'll call the regular council meeting for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017 to order. And our first item on the agenda is confirmation of the agenda. And if I could ask Councillor Sobel, do you have any changes to the agenda?
Nothing. I have an item under 12, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Blokeland?
I have nothing, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Walz?
Nothing, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson?
Nothing, Your Worship.
Councillor Fuel?
I have nothing, Your Worship.
Thank you. And Councillor Graychuk? And administration, I have nothing.
Your Worship, we have two additions to the agenda. Item 7.4, MSI funding agreement,
Yes?
and item 14.4, item pertaining to a matter under FOIP section 24.
Thank you.
We also have an amendment to the agenda if possible. We'd like to move item 8.1 to item 4.2.
8.1 to 4.2.
And also item 4.1, Strathmore Library Board. In addition to the MOU coming to council tonight, will also be a presentation on their year in review.
Your Worship, I'd move to adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you very much. We have a motion to accept the agenda as amended. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. First item on our agenda is the Strathmore Library Board. If you would like to come forward, please.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to present to council. We've started this a couple of years ago where we go through our year in review, just to update council on the progress that the Strathmore Municipal Library Board has been doing. So, thank you very much for having us here. First of all, we want to thank you for your ongoing and growing investment in the library. We've received lots of support. Sorry. We've received lots of support, and everything we do is thanks to the town's support. You are, as you know, our major contributor, and as well as having contributions from the province, the county, the Marigold Library System, and our many community partners. We couldn't do it without you. Right now, we have more library members than ever, 6,256 at most recent count. We keep growing. Our circulation has gone up last year due to both the physical items that we circulate and ebooks. Frankly, we have not only, most people think of libraries as they think of books, but we also, our lending items include literacy kits, pedometers, and a bocce ball set that was donated to us from the Canada Senior Games. So this is the sort of thing that people are going to libraries now. They're going to us for much more than just books. In response to feedback from the community, and thanks to an increase in funding from the town, we are able to extend our hours until 8 p.m. 3 nights per week. And our patron visits have increased by almost 10%. The exact number is 9%, but we're rounding. Thanks to a large number of grants and donations, combined with the extended open hours, we're able to improve our existing programs and create new ones. In 2016, we had 378 programs and 5,915 attendees. No, that's not incorrect. We have more programs on average. We have more than one program a day at the Strathmore Library. We've launched 3 new ongoing programs that I want to highlight specifically this year. In response to community requests, we have started a drop-in stitching group in February. This program builds community while helping people learn and develop new skills. Again, libraries for books and for quilting. Winging It is a program for teens funded by the W. Brett Wilson and Family Organization. And through theater, games, and activities, teens learn to express creativity and develop confidence and performance skills. In response to demand, we've also added a session for ages 7 to 11 in the fall of 2016. The third one, our Nighttime Tales, was launched to address the needs of working parents who are unable to attend our regular daytime programming. The funding for the extended hours that you provided us directly allowed us to reach those who have been unable to take advantage of the library and its services in the past. So once again, thank you for your support. You're making a difference in the community through our work. One other project that we're working on is the Little Free Libraries. This is a project made possible by the United Way of Calgary and area. We've been working with Wes Clark's shop class and Brandy Roberts' art class at the Strathmore High School to build these little libraries. Right now they have 4 built and the art class is decorating them. What this is a community project where these little, they're like large birdhouses, but you can put books inside them. You place them in different areas around the community, and then people can just go there, take a book when they want it, put a book back in when they do. Most importantly, these Little Free Libraries will have, it's not the proper term, I'm going to call it a guardian, somebody who will watch over this to make sure that it's not defaced, it's a positive benefit to the community. So this is a truly community project. Stewards, that's the word we're looking for. We are planning on launching this initiative next month, so we'll be putting the first books out. We'll be putting the first libraries out at that point. The challenge we've been facing for years is that of size constraints, and we desperately need more space. To that end, we've stepped up our fundraising efforts, thanks in large parts to the effort of Marlene Risden, who is a member of our board. This also leads directly into the second half of what we're doing here, because it's more than a proposal now if you vote to accept this MOU, and that is the expansion of the library in the Lambert Center. Basically, thanks to working with your town staff, we have the opportunity to move into the current FCSS program and then take the common area in the lobby and use that for library purposes. By doing this, it will allow us to satisfy provincial standards for an essential level of service for a population of our size. We'll basically be within, I believe it's 95% of the standards for a town of the size of Strathmore. We're still in the drafting and designing stages of how exactly it's going to look, but the MOU will facilitate this and formally set us on the path to finalizing this project. More space is going to allow us to grow to serve our community. We'll be able to dedicate specific areas to teens so that we'll have resources for teens that we do not have now. We'll be able to expand our children's area, and we'll have a larger program room, plus we'll have a small meeting room. So when when community members of, say, 6 to 8 people need a place to meet, we'll have one for them. We'll also have an area dedicated to proctoring exams, which is actually a highly sought after function here in Strathmore. No longer will people have to go to Calgary or to other areas to proctor exams. We already do that on a limited basis now, but with this dedicated space, we'll be able to expand it. We'll be able to expand our circulation. We'll be able to create just something that the public has been asking for in great detail, but that's just a soft seating area, a place where they can just take a book out, sit down, go through it to see if it's exactly what suits their needs, and then it will just be space for them to essentially to use the library as we traditionally do. We'll also be able to dedicate space to an art gallery, which we don't have now, and we'll be able to have more work we'll be able to have more space for our staff to work on things like interlibrary loans and other basically back of house items. This is what this expansion project will be able to do for us. This is what this MOU will start in motion. And that is essentially why we're here today. We've made progress over the past year, as we have in the years previous. We now need your support to continue that progress. So, thank you very much for your time. Do you have any questions about either our year in review or the MOU?
Thank you very much, Jane. Yes. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. Just an extraordinary job, well done, and it's because of a dedicated board and staff with a conscientious commitment to community and to budget. And my question is around the little libraries, which is something near and dear to my heart. And I'm wondering if, and I ask administration as well, if there needs to be a town bylaw to guide the installation and the standards and the upkeep. If you thought about that, if there would need to be something around that. And I guess, you know, and other communities, some of them have just left them to the libraries to maintain, and it's become somewhat onerous sometimes. Other communities have left them to the public to maintain, and that also has had its issues. And it seems like the best model has always been one where the community has a definitive plan and the library has the power over the plan. And so I just was wondering if you'd given it any thought.
I think I'm going to turn this over to our Director of Library Services, Rachel, to answer. We hadn't given specific thought to whether a town bylaw was needed, but we have investigated the program fairly extensively, especially on how it operates in other provinces, in other communities, and I think Rachel should be able to better answer that.
Okay, I think particularly for the ones that are going to be on town property, we still need to negotiate that, then maybe a pretty strict guideline would be useful. We do plan to have stewards for each of those. So if we are able to put one in Kinswood Park, we still hope to have a community member who is responsible for that. And then others will be on private property, so I'm not sure that we need a bylaw to govern that, but we could definitely set out guidelines of how far from the sidewalk it needs to be and all that kind of thing. We have one community member who's really interested and has space for a bench. She's redesigned her whole yard in the hopes of getting one of these. So we definitely want to do it right and we want to do it well. So I think we do need to have some discussions with the town administration about it.
One of the things that I've heard other communities doing is having community members actually bid on having them on their property as a part of their fundraising initiative. And understanding that they're not owners, they're stewards, but
Right.
but they bid for the privilege of having them on their property.
That's worth consideration.
And one
for
of the
sure.
ones that I saw in Connecticut, they had a project where they put little cards in the library or sometimes a little book, but it would say, you know, return this to your library for 2 free children's books, and they saw this huge growth in their not that you were in need of more growth, but
Never hurts.
yeah, but lots of neat initiatives. And I don't know if administration wants to speak to this at this time.
We may, through the chair, we certainly support it, and I've worked with other groups in my past lives with these, and it definitely is worth the library being the owner and the steward of the project. And we certainly have no problem accommodating it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend a bylaw. It's perhaps more simple, just with a letter, just on file. But we'd be happy to accommodate them wherever they can go.
I think the key to this project being successful is to make sure that we have stewards who are active and committed to the project, and like the person who was identified by Rachel, who are dedicated and care for this. So I think that may be more effective than, say, a specific bylaw to try and enforce it. You always get the best, well, you know this obviously, but you always get the best buy-in when you get people who are committed and dedicated.
And I just know when I happen to mention that this is something that I'd really love to have, we're across from a school, and the staff at Marigold said, well, you can't have one because we're getting it. And so I said, well, I think we should compete on that. So, yes.
Well, as I recall, you live on a corner, so there's no reason why you couldn't put yours on the street that Marigold is not on. But, I look at things from a different angle than most people do sometimes.
Thank you.
We believe in getting along. Councillor Sobel, please.
Thanks. Thanks for the report and for the information. It's everything's sounding really good. I also like the idea of the libraries, and I would, if I might, make one recommendation, and that is to be very clear in regards to perhaps signage that the property is owned by the library. I think advertising that fact may hopefully avert some damage to the units or thefts or whatever, because I think most people would be more sympathetic to a library project than to any other project. So just as a recommendation, make that very clear to people. You're messing with the library. Don't do that. Thank you.
One of the other suggestions we saw was to put on there, this was decorated by youth in your community, just to kind of deter. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
No further questions? Thank you very much for the report, and we thank you for all that the library does in our community. It is, I'm sure, a labor of love for all of the library people, so thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Pardon?
Your worship, there is a recommendation in
Yes.
your package.
Yeah. So, if I could have a motion,
Your worship?
please?
I would move that council approve the memorandum of understanding as presented and authorize CEO Thackeray to sign.
Thank you. We have a motion. Any discussion?
Make it clear to the public, this is not the first time we've seen this MOU. We've been dealing this for a while. We've been dealing with administration. There's a lot of work been gone through this. I just don't want people to think that the library is just bringing this on us today. So we're that's all I had.
Good. Thank you very much. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
I have a second motion on this topic, though, Your Worship, and that is to accept the annual report from the library as provided.
Yes, okay, agreed. So we have a motion to accept the annual report from the library. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is 8.1, which has been moved to 4.2, and Ms. Campbell, would you like to come forward?
Yeah, sure. I'm Natalie Campbell. I'm here as a representative of the Town of Strathmore Sustainability Committee. So thank you, everyone, for having me, administration, council, and Mr. Mayor. Our purpose here today is to report on an initiative we've been working on within the committee, which is to recommend the town implement a no idling bylaw for specified zones near hospitals, schools, public facilities, and the downtown of Strathmore. This would be done in an effort to reduce our town's carbon footprint while providing a sustainable, healthy, and safe place to live. So I have a bit of information on this topic as we discussed it in our committee. So the first part is just a fact sheet. So why are we trying to do this? So for Canadians, our geography is vast, our weather changes, our climate changes all the time. And one of the biggest problems we have in summer heat and winter cold is idling our vehicles. So we're warming them up, we're letting them cool down, we're just sitting there while they're wasting gas and then emitting greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. So in 2008, Natural Resources Canada initiated several studies into how harmful idling can be into the environment and for human health. So these studies noted that the average Canadian would idle their vehicles for at least 8 minutes per day unnecessarily, especially in the winter months. This 8 minutes spread amongst the population of our country can account for 2.2 million liters of excess fossil fuel usage in one day. So that's emitting 5 million kilograms of greenhouse gases annually in Canada. So carbon dioxide is an unavoidable byproduct in the combustion of fossil fuels and accounts for the greatest greenhouse gas increase over the last century. In addition to harming our environment, idling can pose an immediate health risk to surrounding populations, especially in the summer months when the air temperature is warmer and they're going to get trapped a little easier. So air pollutants such as carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, oxides of nitrogen, volatile organic compounds are all found in vehicle exhaust. And these compounds can create harmful to health ground level ozone, so stuff that we're directly breathing in every day. A recent Health Canada study linked the chemicals released from idling vehicles, most notably in the warmer months again, to an increased reaction rate amongst air pollutants, creating an immediate decrease in air quality. So while we're idling our vehicles outside of our hospitals or outside of our schools in the summer months, we're having the most compromised citizens of our community breathing in that toxic air. So their recommendation was if Canadian motorists avoided unnecessary idling for just 3 minutes every day of the year, it would prevent 630 million liters of fossil fuels being wasted. So 1.4 million tons of carbon dioxide would be removed from needlessly being pumped into our environment. Annually, that's the equivalent of taking 320,000 cars off of our roads. So education, we have a few initiatives from learning from our neighbors. So a lot of cities and towns in Alberta are starting to implement similar programs or bylaws. So the city of Red Deer recently published a study by the Parkland Airshed Management Zone, which showed that vehicles' emissions are their biggest source of air pollution for the Red Deer area. They have since implemented a large-scale education program emphasizing on going idling free, especially in those high-risk areas. The City of Edmonton passed a bylaw prohibiting vehicles from idling in designated areas outside of schools and hospitals, where the young and compromised are at the greatest risk of air pollution poisoning. This bylaw took effect in January 2013. Edmonton's bylaw prohibits drivers from idling for longer than 5 minutes in the marked areas. When the temperature is above 0 degrees Celsius. So again, when it's warmer, it's trapping the pollutants a little easier. So they're limiting theirs to summer months rather than all year. The city of Calgary recently passed a bylaw which prohibits idling of commercial trucks in residential areas for anything longer than 20 minutes. So the city also has a large-scale education program in place to reduce idling and offers idle-free zone signs for free to any businesses that would choose to use them. And then the town of Okotoks is in the developmental stage of creating a bylaw that will prohibit idling in recreational areas, in front of schools, and in front of hospitals. So persons will not be permitted to idle for longer than 3 minutes within a continuous 30-minute period, should this bylaw pass. So as a town of Strathmore citizen, there's multiple ways we can reduce our negative impact on the environment, and there's multiple ways we can reduce unnecessary idling. So especially in our downtown area, in front of our hospitals, schools like that, where it's either tight quarters or, you have those high-risk populations again. So as an individual, you can save over 100 liters of gasoline per year by reducing your idling times. And then as a community, that adds up to a ton of fossil fuels being saved. So there's a few tips for everyday reduction idling. So if you're going to be stopped for longer than 1 minute, shut your engine off. Drive your vehicle to warm it up rather than idling. Limit remote car starter use and use an engine block heater on cold winter days. And spread the word. So one of the other big things that the Sustainability Committee is trying to do right now is implement a better way to educate the public through our committee as well. So note that it will save individuals money while also protecting the environment. So education is our greatest key for combating this kind of thing, so we are working on that. Our recommendation from the committee was based on the data provided from most notably the federal government. The Town of Strathmore Sustainability Committee recommends that the aforementioned areas become idle-free zones in an effort to uphold the town's commitment to sustainability and ensure that all citizens have a safe and healthy place to live. Do you have any questions on that topic? I'll try my best to answer them.
Councillor Field?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question through the chair. Could you walk me back just to the very start of your presentation? Where would the no idling be proposed again? Which areas?
Yeah, so they would be in front of hospitals, schools, public facilities, and downtown. So I'm not sure exactly what the avenues are, but
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Field. Any other questions?
I just,
Go ahead, Councillor Peterson.
so when we do this bylaw, I noticed when I was looking at this that there's Natural Resources Canada has a model idling bylaw. Is that what you went off of when you were? preparing
Yeah,
this?
so my biggest two resources in this was Natural Resources Canada and Health Canada.
Yeah. And one of the things that I found really interested about reading the documentation around that was, the errors that communities can make when they do this by putting in too many exemptions and by putting the idling laws in for too long and
Yeah.
making all kinds of,
There were a lot that failed because of that.
because of that.
Yeah.
It was interesting, but thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for your work.
Deputy Mayor Blokeland?
Thank you, Your Worship. Great presentation, Natalie. It obviously makes sense. The less we idle, the less gas or fuel we got to put in our vehicles. Just have a couple of questions, though, regarding if there is a bylaw in place, how would we police that? In particular, you mentioned schools, but school buses in the wintertime, they never shut them off.
Right, okay, so there would be an exemption to the bylaw for things like school buses,
okay.
emergency vehicles, police, ambulance, any sort of public service vehicle, I guess it would have to be, yeah.
So there would be exemptions
Decided.
for school buses, taxis maybe,
Yeah,
town equipment, especially doing snow removal?
yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Sobel?
I just have a motion, Your Worship, when you're ready.
All righty. Okay, I will take the motion.
I would move that administration develop a bylaw that focuses on restricting the idling of motor vehicles in designated areas for the town of Strathmore.
Thank you. Discussion? Councillor Peterson?
One of the things that I noted when I was reading the Natural Resources Canada Guide was that they said it's always better to do an education program prior to bringing in the bylaw. That always creates more buy-in. And I guess Edmonton's would be a really good example of that because it's kind of so exempted that it's not even considered effective at all. And so I wonder if it would be worthwhile looking at an education program, just a short lead-in or a lead-in prior to doing this. And when our community has, rather than just imposing a law, having opportunities for our community to offer that feedback and then bring the bylaw forward.
Councillor Sobel?
Well, certainly, we're not, certainly, obviously, not passing the bylaw today. So this is, I think, an opportunity to give administration ample time to do some research and perhaps start into an educational program and come back in a couple, 3 months, perhaps in the fall with a bylaw to deal with this issue. But it certainly, in regards to time frame, I think this gives lots of leeway to administration. So I would like to give them direction on this tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. And I'll ask administration, we don't have a time in there in regards to when this bylaw would take effect. Would you feel comfortable being able to put together an education program prior to the beginning of a bylaw?
Through the chair, what I'd maybe suggest is we could look at some sample bylaws. Maybe we could talk to the committee about education, because you probably have some thinking and you've done some research and some good stuff.
Absolutely.
And if you want to do something, probably, summer's probably not the best time necessarily to launch something like this, because it's certainly, we want to get it when the right time, so. But we certainly can put some thoughts around putting together an awareness and profile. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Graychuk?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer, like some people would accuse me, but, you know, and I'm definitely, you put a lot of work into this, and I know that, and good for you, and it was well appreciated. But, and my only concern is, how do we police it in a mannerism that, so there's vehicles, 6 vehicles running wherever, downtown or wherever, and the timing and all this, and the staffing, and then once you did take it to court, no, it was, my vehicle was shut off at 8:17, and my computer can tell you that in all days. Now, it just, you know, and it would take a lot of police work to really do that, and that's what my only concern about it. Other than that, we got to save fund, there's no question about it. And it's probably an education process more than, or a trust thing more than anything, that's what we're trying to put across.
Yeah, absolutely. So, only if a few of the cities mentioned that have the bylaws in effect actually fine for them right now. So basically meaning they're a bylaw without policing at this time. So Edmonton does police, Calgary polices for commercial vehicles, and Okotoks would be having their bylaw officers doing the policing for residential. If theirs goes through, theirs is just in the procedures of going through, so.
It creates a guilt feeling to the public if we do have something, I think, more than anything. You know, turn it off, you know.
Yeah, I think it would definitely have to be presented the correct way, showcasing more that it's a positive thing rather than
Well, that's what I
being
meant.
shamed for, yeah.
I meant guilty in a positive way, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you there.
Councilor Sobel?
I guess I would only comment also that that one of the best ways to educate on this is with the existence of a bylaw. That in itself, I think, is a big educational tool. And I also believe that in regards to enforcement, you know, at the end of the day, that's a job for bylaw, not for this council, as to how and when they will be enforcing. I think our job is to create the awareness through a bylaw that tells people. And as Natalie pointed out, I think the vast majority of people will respect a bylaw when it's in existence. And I mean the vast majority of people. And again, that's part and parcel of the education process.
Thank you, Councilor Sobel. No further discussion. Councilor Peterson?
When I was reading in, both in the Natural Resources Canada and the Canada Resources Guide, they did suggest that probably the most effective process is through instituting policy as opposed to law, and that an education process was the most effective, and in the, I think they call it the ideal idling bylaw under the Natural Resources Canada Guide. They talk about it more in terms of, even though it is called a bylaw, it is really policy that they've written.
Yeah, so multiple towns do that. They have a bylaw, and on their signs it says no idling bylaw, this number, but it's not policed and it's not educated that it's a penalty thing. It's more of a positive. Let's look out for our community, look out for one another, look out for the sick or the young, or
Children.
Yeah.
No further discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to have administration look into constructing a bylaw in regards to no idling. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Was there
Thank
any
you, everyone.
opposed? Thank you very much, Natalie.
Yeah.
Your information was very helpful to us, and I would suggest you started the education process.
Okay, perfect.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
You were voted in favor, didn't you? Yeah, I did. Okay, I didn't see your hand, that's all. Okay, next item on our agenda is confirmation of the minutes of the regular council meeting of May 3rd, 2017. We have a motion to accept the minutes of May the 3rd, 2017. All in favor? Carried. And we'll need a motion to accept the minutes of May the 6th, special council meeting.
Your worship, I would move that council accept the minutes of the May 6th, 2017 special council meeting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fuel. All in favor in regards to accepting the minutes of May 6th? Thank you. Passed. Next item on our agenda is Farmers Market Pavilion. And Mr. McCann, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. Today we're bringing forward a request for decision regarding the Farmers Market Capital Project. I'll start in the background. Administration is correcting the budget and requesting Council allocate $100,000 to the Farmers Market Building Project with sources from MSI. The Farmers Market for Kinsman Park was approved in error in the 2017 capital budget for $75,000. The dollar amount approved reflects the donations received to the town for this installation. The original presentation to council for the Farmers Market Pavilion indicated a cost of $175,000. Due to an internal error, only $75,000 was budgeted. Administration is now coming to council to correct the budget. Our recommendation is that council approve the increase from $75,000 to $175,000 and proceed with the project in 2017.
Thank you very much, sir. Are there any questions? Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Your Worship. Maybe to our CAO, if we do decide to approve this increase, what MSI funds what projects are we taking from to fund this?
Through the chair, to Councillor Walls, this is an unappropriated MSI, and it was intended for the project when we talked to Mel, so it's just an oversight. But it was intended to be funded, so we'd recommend funding it. Thank you.
No further questions? I'll take a motion. Councillor Deputy Mayor Blokeland?
Thank you, Your Worship. So we need $100,000 more to move ahead on this?
The $100,000 would correct the initial request to $175,000.
So do you or does administration know what the actual donation amount is up to date? 75. That's the number there? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Sobel?
Motion, Your Worship.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, there's one question,
Go ahead, Councillor Graychuk.
and I forgot it. Had we discussed or asked the other farmers market if this would, had we any discussion with them? The one existing farmers market, no? Have we had some?
I'm not aware of any discussions beforehand.
Mr. Zachary?
Yeah, our manager of community services, Tracy Simpson, has had a lot of discussions with farmers market folks, so the purpose was to engage them, and then Chuck from our planning department was actually, did a lot of work on this project, so he's not here tonight, but we certainly wanted, that was the intention, was to work with them, so.
Thank you. Yeah.
Councillor Sobel?
Your Worship, I would move that council approve an increase for the Farmers Market Pavilion project from $75,000 to $175,000 and proceed with the project in 2017 with additional funds to be drawn from MSI.
Thank you. Discussion? Councillor Fuel?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just as a follow-up to Councillor Sobel's motion, when we had the downtown mini-conference last week and speakers spoke, which I guess they would do, one of the things that was mentioned by one of the speakers is that in order to revitalize and save and make downtowns thrive, you need to have regular events. And I think this is one of the ways that the DDRC and council has talked in the past about trying to find ways to bring people downtown, to get business downtown, to get people coming downtown. So this is part and parcel with what our plans were in the past and what's been discussed for a long time. I think one of the things too about the Farmers Market Pavilion is that we looked at staying away from the date that the one that happens in the ag grounds occurs. So we'd be looking at maybe a Saturday morning one or working together with them. So I think everything could work in unison. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fuel. Councillor Walz.
Your worship, a couple more questions. I'm not sure if our director can answer this or if it'd be CAO Thackeray. I guess when this project came before us, I was under the understanding that it was going to be funded mostly by donations, and I'm just wondering where we're at with that. If donations are going to continue to come in?
As far as I understand, this is the money that was set aside, it was fundraised. The intention is to use the full amount of the 75, which was raised. I'm not aware of any other funds coming in at this time because it was from, I'm sorry, the name escapes me. It was an event the town did a few years ago. So
Let's make a pitch.
Yes, thank you.
And your worship, when is construction scheduled to start?
We have a 60-day construction window based on approval of this item. Construction would be June into July. We are hoping, not for an aggressive date of July 1st, but we're predicting in July completion.
And we have water and sewer in this building?
No, sir.
Okay. And what usage are we going to be allowing there or permitting there?
No.
As far as I know, the usage would be permitted for special events, so people could book it through parks. Certainly for the things like farmers markets, it could be for a whole host of variety of events. I think it's pretty open.
Okay. Thank you, worship.
Thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Peterson.
Just to follow up, Bryce, I know that we said in the interim we weren't going to put facilities in the farmers market, but that they would try to build it to spec so that it could happen into the future. Is that still on the books, or?
Currently, there will be opportunity to put water or potentially power to the site in the future.
Okay.
That's what we've got for the long term, maybe
Thank you.
in the
Yeah.
future.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Councillor Walz.
Sorry, Director, I really am. So are we building excuse the term, but are we building another gazebo? Is that all we're building? Except the four walls?
I do have a concept drawing, if I can pass it around or hold it up, but basically, it'll be a 30 by 100 foot structure. It'll be a roof structure with support posts, no walls, and a concrete base for flooring.
And no water and sewer in this building?
Not presently, but there will be opportunity in the future to have water and electricity to the site.
So, go ahead, Mr. Thackeray.
From what I understand, and staff there were some other concepts that were floated around for a larger community type of structure. It was significantly more expensive, several $100,000 to put a facility together. It's a great concept, great idea, but just beyond our financial reach right now, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Graychuck?
Thank you, Your Worship. I really feel that we should be putting power in right away, especially with the cement floor. Would it be that difficult or that costly to put, as you're building the building? Because, you run the lines under the cement and up the wall and up posts. Otherwise, when we do it, it's just kind of, I don't like putting it together that way,
We certainly can look at power. I don't know what
So the way that the structure is going to be completed, it'll be easily available to put power in when the time comes. The structure itself will be, we'll be able to adapt it to allow for power or water to be part of the setup. We definitely discussed that with the contractor and made him aware that this is something we want in the future. Just not now. So it will be readily available and not hard. It won't be difficult to align power and water into the site.
just that most booths in the farmer's market need power, and I'm really into that, you know. You have no cost in the power, approximate cost, or anybody?
We don't have a current estimate, no.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Your worship, I wish to speak to the motion.
You wish to speak to the motion?
I wish to speak just to the motion.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Worship. I'm wondering if this is not premature. I'd like to see a concept drawing. I'd like to see water and sewer and power in this building before we get to approving the actual cost. And I'm wondering if that's something the council would wish to perhaps table to the next meeting, so we get this information, so we can actually, if different funds or if more funds are required, then I would suggest that number come back based on a quote from a contractor. Currently, I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. McCann, the question that I have for you is whether or not there's difficulty in building the structure now, and the difficulty being in adding electricity and water to it sometime later, and if that would be an exorbitant or an unreasonable cost.
I'll try and do my best with an answer. The water concern has been discussed with multiple departments in the town, and we were hoping to partner with future development in that area to help us draw a water line to that location to help offset some costs in the future. As far as the power concern, again, we are hoping that we are planning that this structure will be easily available for power in the future when we come forward. But it would be no problem for us to speak to the contractor and have the conversation about hookups now as we build. It's not an issue either way.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fuel.
Thank you, Worship. Is the tentative completion date of July 1st, is that so that there's no construction during the July 1st festivities down at Lambert, or at Kinsman?
Yeah, I want to be clear that that's a very aggressive date that we're
Okay.
hoping for. But we were hoping to have it, if we could, we would push for it just for the Canada Day celebrations.
That being said, if that's an aggressive date and possibly or probably not achievable, then maybe we should just postpone long enough to find out how much it would cost to have power done right away with the pavilion.
Councillor Peterson?
This council has had 2 years of planning around the issue of a farmer's market, and I believe that in those meetings, we came to the understanding that it would be in the best interests of revitalizing the downtown to do this on this basis, so that we could progress, build a building that would be able to be a progressive build, and we would build to our affordability. So I think it is in the best interests of our downtown revitalization to move forward with this as we planned it, and to stick with the concept plan and recognize that we need to move forward on it as we proposed twice.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Walls.
Your Worship, a quick question and I'll comment afterwards. Is the facility rentable without washrooms?
I do not have that information.
Mr. Thackeray, would you know the answer?
Jennifer and I were just talking through the chair. It would be no different than renting other sites like the gazebo, which have public, there's public washrooms downtown, and that's how it would currently be utilized. If council wants a bigger project, that's another different scope of work. Thank you.
In Your Worship, my comment would be is, yes, we've been sitting on this for 2 years, and I appreciate that. My concern, though, is I don't really want to do a project half-assed. If we're going to do a project, let's do it right from the start, because what we've learned from numerous projects we've done in which we've waited is it costs us more money.
Councillor Graychuk.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I was with the understanding that, that would at least, when we had discussed it for 2 years, but the utilities wouldn't be there, or would be there, especially the power. And the reason why I remember that is that we asked for an upgrade here 3 or 4 years ago of the existing power because people needed more power just to do their weekends. And we said, the answer was that we would do it, the upgrades in power would be when we build this building. So I just really think the power is so necessary. I mean, that's just one issue.
Go ahead, sir.
Would council be amenable for us to postpone this to another meeting, and then we could come back at least with some rough costs if you're interested? Otherwise, we're certainly happy to proceed either way. But it's not inexpensive to run services to these buildings, so we could look at solar power if you're looking at for some lights, or some other alternatives, but thank you.
Thank you. In regards to postponing, we have a motion on the floor, and I would ask if if you'd like to amend in regards to your motion.
Well, actually, I don't, Your Worship. I'd like to go ahead with the motion. I guess my only comment would be that I'm satisfied that that power is an issue that is being looked at by administration as well as water. I'd like to see this project started, and in regards to power, I mean, I think there are options out there in regards to solar, et cetera. But this is a good start, I think, for our downtown community. So I'll let the motion stand and wait for the question.
Thank you. Councillor Walls.
Your Worship, just to administration, I wish to make a tabling motion. We should table this motion, this motion until the middle of June. Would that give you enough time, Director, to prepare a report in which power and so forth, or would the next council meeting be sufficient?
Through the chair, yes, we could investigate estimate costs and bring them forward at the next meeting if you'd like.
So, Your Worship, I wish to table this motion until the next council meeting, which is June 7th.
Now, Ms. Sawatsky, guide me. We have a motion to table. That comes first before we do the other motion, and that motion is not, we cannot debate it. So, we have a motion to table until what was the next council meeting? June 7th? All in favor of tabling?
Sorry, Your Worship,
No.
could I just ask one question? I know we can't speak against it.
Okay, can't debate it.
Can't say anything.
For information purposes, can he obtain information? Okay. We have a motion to table until June the 7th. All in favor of tabling? Opposed? Motion defeated. The original motion is on the floor, and no further discussion. All in favor? Opposed? I called the motion, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Okay.
I apologize.
I didn't vote, though.
You can declare your vote, thank you.
I'll vote in favor.
You voted in favor, thank you. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Next item on our agenda is the composting green cart program. And Councillor Walls.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wish to declare a conflict of interest.
Please show that Councillor Walls has declared a conflict and he has vacated. And who will be speaking to the item?
Thank you,
ahead, sir.
Worship. Just based on council's discussion, council has provided direction to staff to bring forward a green cart program with Huckstead Waste and Recycling. Our recommendation that we propose to council is that council authorize CAO and administration to negotiate with Huckstead Waste and Recycling, and that the town commit to providing a residential pickup green cart, yard, and kitchen organics waste program with Mr. Huckstead.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Sobel?
I'm just ready with the motion, Your Worship.
Okay. I do have a question or two if there isn't any other questions. This motion that we're looking for is just to initiate the discussion and to look at negotiating the Green Cart Yard and Kitchen Organics Waste Program. It will come back to council in regards to that agreement for approval?
Through the chair, yes, it would, but it is the intention to provide direction to implement the program.
Thank you. The other question that I have is, have we done any research, any information been brought forward in regards to doing solid waste recycling prior to the organics? The information that I've been able to develop is that most of the communities that went into this did the solid recyclings program before they went into the organics, because the recyclable products was a bigger item than the organics was.
Through the chair, just to answer your question, Your Worship, we don't have any, I don't have any information at my fingertips that I can share with you right now. We
Okay.
certainly can provide more information. We are aware of some best practices out there. There's no exact science to this, but there certainly is. It's based on the needs of each of the communities, and certainly we can look into that further if you wish.
I was just wondering if there was any information, so that, at this point, is fine. Councillor Graycheck, did you have some questions?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. In one of our meetings, we had a list of likes and recommendations by both parties, the council and administration. Would those likes and dislikes be implemented into the policy? Or
Yeah, it's all based on getting a deal proposed for council to consider, so it would include many of those things.
thank you.
No further questions? Councillor,
I do have a question now, Your Worship.
Okay.
And that was as a result of the CAO's comments. So, did you say that this would also authorize the implementation of the program?
No, I'm not recommending implementing the program. I'm looking for commitment for council to create
Thank
a
you.
program, so there is certainty that council is committed to this. It's a commitment to implement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
before you make your motion,
Yes.
Councillor Sobel, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So to the CAO, this is strictly a recommendation for implementation. You will come back to us with strict numbers and monthly costs?
Yes,
This has nothing to do with this tonight.
we're not agreeing to the, say, what a fee structure would look like or any of that stuff right now, because we have, unfortunately, as you know, Mel's mother passed away, and Mel hasn't been here for a couple of weeks, so
Right. I just want
I
to
don't
know-
have exact figures.
No, I just want to know where we're at
Yes.
with this as of tonight.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that council authorize the CAO and administration to negotiate with Huckstead Waste and Recycle to provide a residential pickup green cart yard and kitchen organics waste program.
Thank you. Discussion? Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I certainly support this recommendation, but one of the things, several seniors, having seen this on our agenda tonight, had said something that I believe, CEO Thacker, you had also brought it up once before, and that is that they asked specifically if in the process of discussion that you could consider smaller carts. And I think that was already on your agenda, but they asked me to bring that forward. Thank you.
Okay, no further discussion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And next item on our agenda is, oh, I'm sorry, yes, I will just wait for a moment. Oh. while we're waiting for Councillor Walls to come back, Councillor Blokeland, or Deputy Mayor Blokeland is going to take a 2-minute walk. He'll be right back. He needs a drink of water.
I could have grabbed one.
Your worship, do you want to move a short recess?
I'll take a motion for short recess.
So moved, Your Worship.
We have a motion for a recess. All in favor? Carried.
Well, we're putting water at the park, we should
Yeah, Matthew? Okay. Call the meeting back to order. Next item on our agenda is consideration of deputy mayor appointment procedure. And Ms. Sawatsky, were you going to speak to that item?
Just briefly, Your Worship, at the May Committee of the Whole meeting, administration brought a report back to council regarding the new procedure bylaw. Part of that report indicated that Council Sobel has brought forward for discussion different ways to appoint a deputy mayor. That matter is coming to council this evening so that council may discuss the issue.
Thank you very much. So, who would like to start the discussion? Councillor Walls.
Your Worship, I guess I'd like to see some recommendations from administration as to maybe a quick report or something like that on some different options that Strathmore could do. Not respectfully, other communities make their own decisions, but this has to be a Strathmore decision.
And you have a few items, I think, that you did some research on. Do you have them available with you now?
Your Worship, I can make them available to council if council so chooses. There were recommendations in the committee of the whole meeting package that was presented to council last week. As well, I believe Councillor Sobel may have some information on the matter.
Councillor Sobel.
Well, I don't. But I do have some comments to make in regards to this. I mean, I brought this issue up because I think it's one that that would assist council in their term in the best way. I mean, our position now is to rotate councillors through the deputy mayor position. And to be quite frankly, I don't see a lot of value in that in regards to administration of our town and in regards to assisting the mayor in duties, something that I think a permanent deputy mayor voted on and voted by the rest of council would do. I think there's an issue of consistency here and knowledge of what's going on in the administration part of the job, and second set of eyes and somebody that the mayor I think can also rely on a permanent and consistent basis to perhaps discuss items and somebody in the know with what is going on his desk as well. Of course, that I think this will facilitate situations where the mayor is away on vacation or for other reasons. But I think it's all an issue of being consistent and everybody being on the same page. So that's the gist of why I've raised this. It's not to cut anybody out. I think it's a way of improving our future councils.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Peterson?
So I found it really interesting, and it was a good exercise to think about this, because initially, I remember a time when when they've had lots of different processes in terms of our community. And I initially thought that having a permanent deputy mayor appointed by council would not be a bad idea. But when I started to speak to other municipalities and their thoughts around this, one of the things that came about was that it can be also a very negative process if the mayor and the deputy mayor form a coalition. And then it can be a very, very powerful process within council that can act, and other councils that have had this found it to be a negative process, that it didn't really, when coalitions were formed, that even though those two only made up, they certainly didn't have a majority vote, but could certainly be influential if they were opposed to administration, or if they were together, that it was not necessarily a process that best reflected the votes of community. And so I thought that was really interesting. And so, one of the ways in thinking about that was around how do you put the community back into that? So then, if you were going to have a permanent deputy mayor, would it be the person who received the most votes on council? Would they then become the deputy mayor? That then puts it back into the hands of community, in a sense, and allows it to that. I also liked what our administration brought forward, and they talked about an acting deputy mayor. So that doesn't deter from the fact of a rotation where everybody becomes familiar with the role when they need to, as Councillor Blockland is deputy mayor now. But an acting deputy mayor can be a permanent position that only steps in when the mayor isn't able to run the meetings. And so you have that administration consistency. I wouldn't really understand that when you brought it forward at our committee of the whole, but in thinking about that, that did make some sense. And our member of parliament was talking to Councillor Graychuk and I the other day, and he was at one of our towns close by, when in the midst of a council meeting, just prior to him coming to speak at the microphone, the mayor resigned. And no one knew about it. And no one was prepared to run the meeting. And the deputy mayor didn't know how to run the meeting. And so it created a really difficult time and quite a bit of chaos for administration at that point. And so we'd like to avoid that. So I think that if I was going to support this, if I was going to support a permanent deputy mayor, I would have to do it at the behest of the voters. So that's how I would see it. It would be the councillor that received the greatest support from the community. And I do see value in rotating the office of deputy mayor, because it does give opportunities for every single council member to become more competent in their understanding. So I'm good with either one of those two things.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Deputy Mayor Blokeland.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I find it interesting on both sides of this topic, but I would like to stay on the side of the way we're doing things at the moment. I don't think I'm amiss when I say any councillor that gets elected, that you're in here for a steep learning curve. You learn a lot of stuff pretty fast. When you do get a chance to sit in the mayor's chair because of the mayor's absence, to me, you learn that's a whole different chair sitting in the middle there than it is sitting over here. I find you learn a lot of stuff over there too. The deputy mayor on a steady basis probably has its merits too. I don't know, I like the rotating process we're using. And over a 4-year term, maybe instead of being deputy mayor twice, we should just put it in, 4 months now?
Yes.
So maybe a deputy mayor should be in for 8 months, and then you have less rotations. I like both ideas, but I like to consider staying what we're doing. To me, it's still a learning process. Even if you sit in that chair for one meeting only, in 4 months or 8 months, you learn how to run a meeting, and to me, that's important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Graychuk.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm with the last two comments, both Councillor Peterson and Councillor Blockland. I'd be very fearful of a coalition, and secondly, there's the factor of now, if the guy's full-time as a deputy mayor, is there a financial remuneration part? I don't know. That would be one time considered or talked about, I'm sure. The other issue is I'm really in favor of council rotating for the matter of that the new councillor can learn about it. I mean, that's so important to me. You get a chance to sit there and you get a chance to be part of the community and you're learning how to run the meetings and if you run for mayor one day, you get to know a lot more, and that helps out. And I'm not in favor, and no disrespect to anybody, I'm not in favor of the deputy mayor. If you're going to go that way, you should be the second most popular vote, because that's what votes are, is popular votes, and I don't think that's right either. That doesn't necessarily mean he knows as much as everybody else. So I wouldn't be in favor of that philosophy. And I mean that with the greatest respect. But anyway, that's my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Councillor Graychuk. Councillor Fuel?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of comments. A lot of things have been said already that I was thinking of saying. There are problems, and I can see both sides. There are problems when you could have someone in as a brand-new councillor who on the very first term is on the first rotation as deputy mayor, and something happens where they do have to take over. And I think we all know that in the past year to year and a half, there have been some pretty weighty, tough issues to deal with. So that is a problem to think about. The other thing is, as we become a bigger community, with more and more events that go on and more things that are happening, we do need to keep sight of that kind of consistency that would be coming from. I am very intrigued by this acting deputy mayor idea. That's an interesting idea because that would provide some consistency. And the last thing I wanted to say is I do see the idea of rotation being good too, because it does develop a team concept where everybody becomes a part of it, and it's not just it's one designated person. I find this to be a really tough situation, or tough thing to come up with an idea for. And I don't know, we have a new council coming in October. Maybe it's something that they want to address. I'm not sure.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fuel. Councillor Graychuk?
Yeah, just one more comment. Just because you're the acting deputy mayor doesn't mean you have to take the chair. You can assign the chair to someone else in the meeting if you feel uncomfortable. There's that issue to it too. I mean, you can assign the chair to anybody you want. I mean, anybody can.
I can vacate the chair, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor
Make a
Sobel?
motion, Your Worship.
Sure. Take a motion.
I would move that administration amend the council procedural bylaw to allow for the appointment of a deputy mayor at the first organizational meeting of a newly appointed council, with a successful candidate being voted into the position as a result of obtaining the most votes in an election.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Do we have a motion? Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Peterson, if you had discussion.
So I hear Councillor Graychuk's point on popular vote, and I think that has merit. I do like the idea of the public having a say. But after having heard Councillor Blockland speak, I actually prefer the 8-month cycle. I really like that better. So that would be the process that I would support first. And certainly the motion of Councillor Sobel would be my second choice, but I really like the proposal of Councillor Blockland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a motion to have, pardon me? Oh, okay. We have a motion to have a deputy mayor appointed likely in the new term. Is that what the motion said?
Yes.
That's when it would be, in the new term.
First organizational meeting of a newly appointed council.
Right, okay, good. Councillor Fuel,
Can I ask a question?
by all means.
Is this something that we can put in place for a new council, or is this something that can be just undone by a new council anyway when they come in?
They can undo it.
Okay.
So, no further discussion? All in favor?
Oh, just a minute. I'm sorry, on which motion?
The one that Councillor Sobel made.
Yeah, oh, sorry. I get my motion.
So, do you want me to say
Yes,
that
please.
again?
Yes, please.
Motion from Councillor Sobel in regards to the deputy mayor. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is defeated. Next item on our agenda is MSI funding. And that is 7.4. Ms. Sawatsky, are you going to be speaking to that issue?
Yes, Your Worship. Your Worship, Council's received a letter from Municipal Affairs regarding the MSI funding. The government is, I'm sorry?
If I could just interrupt for one quick second, Councillor Peterson has a personal issue she has to leave, and if you would show that Councillor Peterson has left the
Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor. I'm sorry, Councillor, Ms. Swatsky, go ahead.
Okay, Council has received a letter from Municipal Affairs indicating that they would like to extend the MSI agreement for an additional 2 years, from 9 years to 11 years. Administration is bringing this matter forward so that Council can authorize the Mayor and CAO to sign the amending agreement.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions? Or did you want to make the motion?
Well, Your
Make the
Worship, I
motion?
have a question. I'm prepared to make the motion, but I have a question first, if that's all right, Your Worship.
Please go ahead with the question.
Mr. Thackeray, can you please refresh my short-term memory as to what types of things we use the MSI funds for?
To Councillor Walls, to the chair, please.
Go ahead.
We use it for a number of capital projects, for example, road works and so forth, we use MSI on. We rely on MSI, it's a very important program for our community, because most of our capital comes from MSI or debt. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Graychuk?
Just one question. I don't recall of any new capital projects like street paving or underground services that we're going to be doing this year or allotted for next year. No. That's what I was wondering. I just wanted to refresh my memory. Thank you.
Councillor Walls?
Your Worship, if you're ready for the motion, I'm prepared to make it.
Yes, please.
I'd move the council authorize the mayor and CEO to sign the Municipal Sustainability Initiative amending agreement to extend the funding commitment from 9 years to 11 years.
Thank you very much.
And your worship, if I...
Go ahead.
Mr. Thackeray, have you heard any further information as to what happens after 11 years?
No, Councillor Walls, it's still, as far as we know, this is it. This is what I understand it to be. Thank you.
So after the 11 years, I would suggest MSI will not exist any longer. That would be my guess. Pardon me? Yeah, we have no idea. That's a straight guess.
Your worship, if I have a further question.
Go ahead, Councillor Walls.
How much funds do we get from the MSI fund?
In a typical year, typically it can be a few $1 million. But we've made commitments. We've committed other years to other projects. So, but that's just what we typically get, which is very, very helpful to us.
Thank you very much. And we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is administrative inquiries. Oh, I'll correct that. Next item on the agenda is the question period. Questions between councillors, if there's any questions between councillors. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Is that councillors and administration? Or is that into the next one?
If it's something that you're looking for information on, it should be done under administrative inquiries if it's going to administration.
Okay, I'll wait for the next one.
Okay. No questions between council? No?
Your worship, I have a report that I don't know where to put it in, and it's going to be dealt with when the changes are made, but we're on 12, your worship, right now, 12?
Yes.
So I'll maybe make my very short report in this section as it
By all means.
doesn't go anywhere else. And I just wanted to report that it was an absolute pleasure to spend the morning and afternoon of Saturday, May the 13th, with some of the leaders and members of the Strathmore Youth Club as we conducted a food drive in front of our office. Together, we managed to fill most of the youth club bus, actually gaining 477 pounds of food for the food bank, and as well as $1,087 in cash donations. All this was, of course, dropped off at the Wheatland and District Food Bank in that afternoon. And I'd like to thank everyone who dropped by to donate. Thank you to Rocky's Bakery for the donuts. Thank you to the town for supplying the location, the coffee, and barricades. Thanks to the Newsy Neighbor, the Times, and the Strathmore Standard for advertising the event, and appreciate everyone who assisted in this, and hopefully we can do it again next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Walls?
Your worship, my question's to you. How did the McHappy Day event go?
The McHappy, are you talking about McHappy or the new Tim Hortons store?
Can't remember, whichever, you're on the front page of something.
That was the McHappy Day. Usman, the owner of the McDonald's here in town, is a very large community supporter, and every chance he gets to do something to pay back into the community, he does. And one of the interesting things that he did during McHappy Day is they made a whole bunch of, I think they were quarter pounders, for one of the schools, and they delivered them to the school because the school is involved in doing things in our community. So I thought it was very successful, and I've seen the numbers, and I forget what the numbers were, but it was, I think, just under $10,000, but I'm not sure.
It was higher than that.
Was it more than 10?
I thought it was just under 20.
Was it under 20? Okay.
That's my recollection.
It could have been. I wouldn't be a bit surprised, because he is a big supporter. So, but thank you very much for asking that question. I have a great time doing the McHappy Day and meeting the citizens and saying hi to them. And I know several of the councillors, when they have time, they come out and they help. The schools help, the teachers help, the principals help, and it's good when we work together as a community. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just got informed by my fellow counselor here, administrative inquiries, I have to have it in writing. So can I eat tonight and ask this question under 12?
Your worship, you could write it down, your inquiry, and hand it in to me during the meeting. It's in the procedure. Procedures indicate that you can hand your question in at any point during the meeting.
So I can still ask the question?
Yes, your worship.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Nothing further between councillors? Okay, administrative inquiries.
Your worship, I have one more question.
Oh, go right ahead, sir.
Councillor Graychuck, I understand you were at an event on Saturday. Can you give a quick comment about how the funding for the hospice went?
Thank you, Councillor Walls. It went really great. It was a packed room. It was just like a 4-H deal. You bid on a calf that wasn't there, and there was no smell there, which I really appreciated. And the average calf went for $4,000, and how it works is you buy a calf for $4,000, and they ship it to market the next day, and by the way, the donors who fed the calf gave the calf for free. So, but when you bought it, they shipped it to the market and say you got $2,500 for the calf, and they kept the difference, and it cost you $1,500. And there was probably over 200,000 raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Graychuck. No further questions between council? Okay. Administrative inquiries. Ms. Swatsky.
Your worship, we have one response to an administrative inquiry. It's in regard to Councillor Sobel's inquiry regarding the potential to implement a composting program at Canada Day. So the event planning staff have been in contact with H&H Hucksteads about the potential of having composting bins on July 1st. Arrangements have been made to have 2 4-yard compost bins within the park, along with roughly 6 rolling carts within the food areas. The carts will be emptied throughout the day into large yard bins and with the use of compostable bags. Huckstead Enterprises will be donating the rental of the bins for the Canada Day Festival, and the parks and event staff will ensure they are emptied on a regular basis along with the waste and recycling bins. Advertising of the composting bins will be included throughout the park.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And there was another administrative inquiry, I think. Do you have that one?
Yes, Your Worship, we have 2 new inquiries. The first is from Councillor Walls regarding Pine Road. The inquiry reads, can administration report back to council possible measures that can be taken to improve traffic flow and stop parking on Pine Road? The second inquiry is in regards to the bulk water station. The inquiry reads, can administration report back to council on the possibility of installing a turnaround at the bulk water station?
Thank you. And were those questions going to be answered directly or during a council meeting sometime in the future?
Your worship, actually, that's a question to Councillor Walls if he'd like them reported back to council meeting or through a memo.
Your worship, if they could come back to council, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Sawatsky, you have no more administrative inquiries on your desk right now? No? Okay, now I know. I just want to make sure she's finished.
Yes, Your Worship, I have no more on my desk.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Blokeland,
Thank
you have
you.
administrative inquiry.
Thank you, Your Worship. In my daily routine every day, I walk around Kinsman Lake a couple of times. And for those of you that don't know, there's a family of owls in a tree there. Very interesting. There's 5 owls sitting in this tree. It looks like it's a mother and a dad and 3 babies. So I walk, every morning I go for my walk around Kinsman Lake twice, and I stop and look at the owls. Kind of neat. But while I'm doing that, I bump into citizens that are doing the same thing I'm doing. And the floating device in the middle of Kinsman Lake that's not operating, I guess, is that the one that has a fountain that shoots up the water like it used to, about 20 feet? And if in case that is the same floating device, is it going to have the fountain on it, or is it going to get fixed, or are we going to get one? It sure adds to the feature of the lake itself and the park in general. Even the three what do you call those smaller ones?
Aerators.
Aerators, they're nice to look at, but the fountain in the middle there would be very nice to have back in operation as it was a few years ago.
Go ahead, Mr.
That was,
Thackeray.
that was my question.
So as I understand the question through the chair to Councillor Blockland, is there a fountain, is one of the aerators a fountain? I believe one of them is, and we can check to make sure that if it's working appropriately or when it's going out.
Well, it's not the same as the three that are in there now. This one we used to have a few years back, and this thing shoots up about 20, 25 feet.
There's different colors too.
I don't know what that color is. The owls would like it too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No further administrative inquiries? Okay, I will take a motion to go in camera.
So moved, Your Worship.
We have a motion to go in camera for matters pertaining under protection of privacy, section 16 and 23. All in favor?
Make a motion on the reports.
Pardon me?
Just make a motion on the reports.